It's the Mike Francesa Podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mike Francesa Podcast on the Bet Rivers Network, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. We come to you on this Monday morning, 2 weeks into the NFL season. Obviously, one game still to play tonight between the Falcons and the Eagles. And 12 days or 12 games into remaining in the baseball season. We'll get to the Yankees and the Mets, but first, let's start with the locals, and then we'll branch out to a couple of things about the NFL. Let's start with the Giants. The big question with the Giants really surrounds whether or not they should have protected themselves when they knew that their place kicker, who has had leg problems in the past, had a groin injury coming into the game. Now, understand that process. The head coach is going to talk to the trainers who have talked to the doctors. The head coach might also talk to the doctors. They'll get an opinion there. He also will talk to the general manager, and they will decide who they're going to dress and take to the game. You're always talking about why and who gives you a reason to take them to the game. You don't want to take dead roster spots to the game. So you want to think that you need to have that backup player if he's just there to kick an emergency PAT or to kick an emergency field goal. If you're going to activate another kicker or somebody who can handle the place kicking chores, and that's all he's going to do, it's a dead roster spot. And they don't like dead roster spots. So they obviously felt comfortable that their place kicker was going to be fine. Now, you guys can this week decide whether you want to consult an orthopedic surgeon to figure out whether the groin injury in any way was a reason why he sustained a hamstring injury. I don't know if it was or it wasn't. I have no idea. I'm sure you get plenty of debate on the issue. Now, they wind up feeling like they cannot make a PAT or kick a field goal. So it obviously changes the way they play the game. Teams feel very confident about their two-point tries. The Giants didn't do well with their two-point tries. They had a commitment to go on fourth and short. They go on fourth and short, 4th and 3. They throw the ball to a kid who has caught the ball all day, and he drops the ball. Would they have won the game if he caught the ball? Probably. Maybe not. Who knows? But the bottom line is that's where they decided to go. They did not feel they had the ability to make a PAT or a short field goal. That's number one. They ran the ball well. They passed the ball well. Neighbors had a big game against those coverages that Washington showed them. Obviously, running his crossing paths. When you want to get a guy free who's got a lot of speed, all you got to do is bring him across the defense. You can do that with shallow crosses. You can do it with intermediate crosses. You can do it with deep crosses. The bottom line is that is going to get him open. Now, he was targeted an extreme number of times. Now, to target a rookie receiver, no matter how good he is, 18 times in a game is a lot. There's nothing wrong with that, though. There's nothing wrong with targeting a big receiver. He caught 10 balls. He had a very productive game. He dropped a ball he should have caught. Jones had a solid game. They ran the ball well. But remember, they were playing a defense that's no good. They were playing a team that's no good. They were playing a team that got its doors blown off in Tampa opening week. Gave up 37 points and 4 touchdown passes to Baker Mayfield. Now Tampa went in and beat Detroit, so that game looks better for the Washington. But bottom line is that's a game the Giants have to win. If they're not going to beat Washington, who in this league are they going to beat? And yesterday, Washington moved the football. They ran the ball all day. They ran the ball with extreme success. The problem for Washington was every time they got in the red zone, they couldn't score a touchdown. Give the Giant defense some credit for that. Also understand that Washington didn't execute and committed 1 million penalties. We know that. Did they move the football? Yes. Robinson ran 17 times for 133 yards. That's awful defense. He averaged 7.8 yards a carry. Daniels, is going to get his 40 yards rushing. Okay. You want to keep Daniels from completing a lot of passes. They didn't do that. He was 23 of 29. The Redskins moved the ball all day. They had 425 yards of offense. They got inside the red zone all day. The problem is they settled for 7 field goals. Now, I saw the stat last night that everyone's going to go gaga on because it's such an unusual stat. A team that doesn't score touchdowns never beats a team that scores 3 touchdowns unless they get 7 field goals. Because a team that gets no touchdowns usually doesn't get in the red zone all afternoon. They got in the red zone all afternoon and kicked a variety of field goals. So they win the game 21-18, and the Giants, despite a good game and a bad drop by Neighbors, despite a solid game from Jones and a solid game from Singletary, despite all that, the Giants are 0-2. They're 0-2, and now they're going to face Cleveland at home, which is going to be a brutal game. Cleveland won yesterday at Jacksonville. Their offense is still ugly. Their defense, is really good. And it's going to put a ton of pressure on Jones. Now, does Cleveland get their tackles back? I don't know. If they do, they're going to be even more of a problem. Then after that game, they have a Thursday nighter with Dallas. Or if that, they have a trip to Seattle. Or if that, they have a Sunday nighter with, I think it's a Sunday night. It's either a Sunday night or a Monday night. I know it's a prime time. It's a Sunday nighter with Cincinnati. That's 4 games that they are going to be distinct underdogs in the next 4 weeks. That doesn't bode well. And I have talked about time and time again, the worst thing that can happen in the NFL is open up 0-4, 0-5, because your team falls apart. Every little crack gets bigger. Guys start to protect themselves. Guys start to not play with nagging injuries. Nobody buys in. Everyone's pointing fingers. And yesterday, you saw Dable, one happy camper when he got up there. Also, always figure out that the coach's attitude is going to be worse with each 5 minutes that he's not there. When he takes a long time to get there, it's worse. He took a long time to get to the podium. Now, that's always a telltale sign. Number 2, he didn't like the question about his career and whether he was in trouble. No coach likes that, but he took complete umbrage with it. Stared down the question. I don't know who asked the question, but whoever asked the question, he stared him down. Now, in New York, those questions come when you have a disastrous year, you have a mutiny inside your coaching staff, and you open up 0-2 in what people thought were games that you should have been competitive with or won. They thought you should have been competitive with Minnesota. All right, Minnesota turned around and beat San Francisco yesterday, which was not at full strength. Sam Darnold's doing a nice job right now. He's getting the ball to Jefferson. He's doing his job. And then they lose to Washington, and now they face 4 brutal games in a row. It'd be a big surprise if the Giants win in Cleveland. But they are staring at a huge uphill climb. Their defense has got to do better. I don't want to hear about the sacks they got. I don't want to hear about plays they made. They got run on for 200 and change yesterday. The back averaged, and he's not a top back, averaged 8 yards a carry. Washington ran for over 200 yards. You can't give up 200 yards rushing in this league and expect to win games. So they are 0-2, and all your worst fears, other than the fact that Neighbors looks like the real deal, are coming to fruition. They have a ton of work to do and a very tough schedule to do it against. Now to the Jets. Hey, Jets won that game yesterday for two reasons, and both of them had to do with the quarterback. Number one, Will Levis, with his mistakes, let them off the hook. Tennessee was about to break that game open when he made an incredibly stupid play. They were going up 2 scores, but he turned the ball over, and then he turned around and turned it over again. Playing young quarterbacks is extremely beneficial in this league. You see it all the time. Why? Because they make mistakes. They're not productive. They don't handle the rush well. They do impetuous things. They do stupid things. The other reason was because you had Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. His game yesterday wasn't a thing of beauty. He was on the move too much, and he even threw a couple of passes that weren't very Rodgers-like. But on a winning drive, he was completely in command. Some of the passes he threw were absolute perfection. The 2nd and 16. What a gorgeous pass. He dropped a couple of passes in there, including the touchdown pass to Hall. He dropped a couple of passes in there that were just unbelievable. The Jets did not play great yesterday and could have easily lost that game and would have lost that game if they didn't have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. And to a little extent have a mistake-prone quarterback on the other side. Now, Tennessee's defense might be a lot better than any of us thought it was. It was good week 1. They lost the game because their offense turned the ball over and they had punt blocked. They've had a punt blocked in 2 weeks in a row. And if you want to get out of town as a special teams coach, keep getting punts blocked. They've had a punt block 2 weeks in a row. If they haven't blocked 3 weeks in a row, you watch, they'll have a new special teams coach. You don't get punts blocked in this league. Case closed. Number 2, Rodgers made enough plays and recognized what he had to do. Get rid of the ball quickly. Go to a little different attack to get the ball moving and find a little rhythm with that offense. Now, there were some things yesterday you didn't like. You still don't like the fact that the Jet running game is not good. It was a little better in the second half. Allen ran the ball okay. Hall, except for the 30-yard run, did not run the ball well yesterday. And he has not run the ball in short yardage. The Jets have not had a proficient running game yet. And they had trouble getting the ball to the wide receivers yesterday. What they did was they used their backs out of the backfield as primary targets. And I told you all year that they were going to do that. And they were going to do it especially to Hall, but they're also doing it to Allen. And that is very hard to cover because a lot of times they're on linebackers. And they're on linebackers. They're winning those matchups every time, and he'll put the ball wherever he needs to put it. He made some great throws, and he was completely in command, and that's why they won. They won because they had a real quarterback. I'm telling you, that's a game in the past the Jets always lose. And that was an enormous win yesterday. Why? Because Buffalo's already 2-0. They now face some winnable games before they play the Bills. Let's be honest. The Jets should beat the Pats. Despite being banged up on defense, they should beat the Pats Thursday night. And then they have Denver coming in, and Denver right now is a mess. Knicks is having all kinds of problems, as rookie quarterbacks do, and their offense is just nowhere. That should get them to 3-1. If they're 3-1 after an 0-1 start, that's exactly where you want to be. They're on schedule, and the Jets haven't been on schedule in forever. Remember, Salah's a coach who opens seasons with losses after losses after losses. He's 3-17 in September going into yesterday's game. That's overcoming same old Jets. That's very important. What Rodgers brought yesterday was a stability and an experience that the Jets haven't had that position in forever. And it makes a difference. The Jets have to be better. They have to run the ball better. They got to get more production out of the wide receivers. They got to get more production out of the tight end. And now on defense, the Jets are nowhere near the defense they were. Now, if they don't get Reddick in now, there should be an investigation. After losing Johnson, so you're down Huff, you're down Johnson. I understand McDonald had a good game yesterday and had 3 sacks. They need Reddick in the worst way. They also need to go out and see if they can pick up a run stopper. If they can't, they need to prove that Saleh, and this is supposed to be his one strength, real strength as a coach, developing defensive secondary talent. Can he do that? He's done it in the past. Can he do that? And develop some toughness in that front seven. Right now, they're playing without Reed. They're playing probably without Mosley. They're playing without Johnson. If you go back and look at their defense from the start of last year, they're playing without a lot of people. A lot of them are gone. A lot of guys who were real pluggers. They need to develop these guys and develop them quickly. Or go out and make a deal for one of these guys and bring Reddick in. Listen, it's all worked out for Reddick. The defense hasn't played great. Now you lose Johnson for the season. They need to bring Reddick in. I mean, they desperately need him. Yes, he's got them over a barrel. Do what they have to do, whatever has to be done. I don't care if it's lie to him. Do whatever you have to do to get him in here for the rest of the year. Make any deal you can make that gets him here for the rest of the season happy and productive, because without him, you're going to be in big trouble defensively. This defense can't afford to lose the people it's lost. And that's going on the premise that the one real forte, the one real strength that Saleh has is that he develops secondary defenders. He takes no-name guys and turns them into solid defensive players. He's got to prove he can do that again with a new core of guys. He proved it last year. He'll prove it again. Or go out and see if he can pick up some of the guys who were bouncing around. Pick up a plugger. Pick up a run stopper. And get Reddick in here, because they need help in the front seven. I don't know how long Mosley's out, but Mosley's a big loss. Reed's a loss. Mosley's a big loss. Johnson's a big loss. If they don't get Reddick signed, it's a huge loss. This is not right now Aaron Rodgers and a premier defense. It's no longer a premier defense. No longer. It's getting run on. And let's be honest, they're completing passes on it too. Ridley should have had a touchdown catch. He let it go right through his arms. He then caught one where I don't know if Gardner thought that Clark was going to intercept it, so he backed off. If he did, you can't do that. And I don't know if he did it or not, but if he did it, if he didn't do it, the coverage wasn't great. If he did it, you can't do it. Did I think his safety was going to intercept the ball? Yes, I did. But he didn't, and the ball got through him, and the ball goes into the end zone for a touchdown. That can't happen. They have got to be better. They weren't good enough to win yesterday. They won because Tennessee's young quarterback made mistakes, and because Rodgers made plays. He wasn't perfect, but he made plays. And he made some throws that, you know what, not a lot of guys can make. He dropped a couple of balls in there that were just unbelievable. I mean, a couple of them were just absolute things of beauty. The touchdown pass to Hall was just, and he was well covered. It was just a thing of beauty. It really was. And the 2nd and 16 throw was just so good. I mean, that's the kind of plays that you have to make. And when you make those plays, it makes a huge difference. And you had a quarterback who understands what has to happen. Okay, they have a 2nd and 16. at the Tennessee 45 with less than 5 minutes left in the game. And he drops that 2nd and 16 into Williams, who's got to be a bigger factor here, into Williams for a 19 yards gain. That is so letter perfect. Unbelievable. Those pass plays, the touch he has, the accuracy he has, his ability on those last drives to make the plays he had to make. That's the reason they're not 0-2. And he will get stronger. The offensive line can protect him. They have got to run block better. They have got to get the tight end more involved. They have got to get their wide receivers more involved. It can't just be about getting the ball in the hole in all a variety of ways. And even, listen, Braylon Allen was very productive yesterday. He comes in and scores 2 touchdowns. That's a heck of a performance. But you don't come away from that game saying, oh, the Jets flex their muscles. They're 1-1. They're rolling. They're not rolling. They have a lot of issues right now. And they got a lot of holes to patch on defense. Now they get a couple of weeks here. They get a New England team that it is not awful, but is not going to hurt them with their passing game. Because they don't have the wide receivers to do it, and they don't have the mentality right now to play that way. They're going to try and run the ball downhill on the Jets. I can guarantee that's what they're going to try and do. And the Jets have to be ready for that. And yesterday, Geno Smith picked them apart. There's no reason why Rodgers can't do the same thing. And then Denver comes in behind them, and Denver has no offense right now. So they should be able, first of all, this is third game in 11 days, which gives them 11 days off, and they can get a lot of work done in those 11 days and get some rest. They had a tough early schedule. When you open up with 2 games on the road, including going to play at San Francisco, which is as tough as it gets, you have 2 games on the road and then play a Thursday night game. That's a tough schedule. They're banged up, makes it a tougher schedule, because they're this week probably going to have to play without Reed, without Mosley, obviously without Johnson. And Reddick, even if he signed, is not ready to play Thursday. And I'm trying to be optimistic about Reddick. I don't know that they're going to do anything with him, but they have to now. I mean, I've been screaming about it for weeks, but now it's not even a question mark anymore. He's won. Things went his way. The wheel came up his number. That's all there is to it. Understand it and get him in here, because you need that productivity. And they need to go find another plugger or prove that Saleh can develop those guys as he has in the past. Mosley lost. You hope that toe injury, but toe injuries can be a pain in the neck, especially to older players. So you're worried about that also. Jets got a win they had to get. They now have 2 very winnable games to put them back on schedule. But they have a lot of things they have to fix. And I hope they recognize that. To the league quickly. Ravens 0-2, blowing a 10-point lead. Go back a year, and they've blown more double-digit leads than any team in the league in the last 20 games. The only time that Harbaugh in Baltimore was 0-2 was 2015. They went 5-11. That 0-2 is ugly. They're beat up on defense, and now they play Dallas, Buffalo, and Cincy the next 3 weeks. This is a big game. Dallas coming off a beating against New Orleans, and the Ravens at 0-2. You talk about an early season game, and this is where the NFL shines, and no other league can even come close. Think about a game of this significance this early in the season. Dallas coming off a brutal defeat, giving up 40-plus points and 1,000,000 yards to Kamara and the Saints. Getting embarrassed in their home opener. They're 1-1. They have the Giants on a short week after this. Ravens come in 0-2. one of those teams is a real negative story coming out of Sunday afternoon. That's a huge game in week 3. That's what the NFL brings you. That's a huge game in week 3 for these two teams. These teams had Super Bowl aspirations. Bengals are 0-2. And listen, they outplayed Kansas City yesterday. You want to say they got unlucky on that pass interference? It was pass interference. Remember, on the play before they completed the play, they got called on a hold. Obviously, they couldn't block a guy on Cincinnati's front line all day. And the story in Kansas City, they're 2-0. But where's Kelsey gone? Check those numbers out. Check out his first 2 games. I know if you have him in one of your fantasy leagues, you know what his numbers are. Bengals are 0-2. Chase is unhappy. They got a lot of unhappy players. Be careful. Be careful in Cincinnati. You know, it doesn't. They played well enough to win, and they always play well against the Chiefs. But something doesn't feel right. Something does not feel right with the Bengals. They're playing Monday night next week at home against Washington. That should be a rousing win for them. That should be a no-brainer for them. That's what where the schedule comes in and is so important. If Cincinnati was getting a game this week like Baltimore was getting at Dallas, instead 0-2, off a tough loss, they get a home game against Washington. Gets you right back on track. The schedule plays, it aids and it hurts. This week it hurts the Ravens, it aids the Bengals. Jacksonville 0-2. Tough loss to Miami, blew the lead. Tough loss yesterday to Cleveland, had thrown it in the end zone late, trying to get the game back. 0-2. Lawrence says we stink. Ingram gets hurt in the pregame. They have no receivers right now. Their offense is way off. And now they play at Buffalo and at Houston the next 2 weeks. So here's Jacksonville. Thinking playoffs. Where are they next Monday? In Buffalo. 2 Monday night games next week. Washington at Cincinnati. Jacksonville at Buffalo. Jacksonville is at Buffalo, at Houston. Think about how big these next 2 games are for Jacksonville. 0-2. 0-2. Houston already 2-0. 0-2 and going to Buffalo and going to Houston. Now on the surprise side, Saints 2-0, and boy, oh boy, beat up Carolina. Carolina's the worst team in the league. We know that. Putting a 40 on Dallas. Throwing the ball all over the lot. Kamara with 4 touchdowns and all kinds of yardage. How good are the Saints? We got to answer that question. Vikings 2-0 for Sam Darnold. Now, this week, the Vikings are really banged up. Jefferson went out of the game yesterday. They don't have Hawkinson. They don't have Addison. They are really going to be short in this game this week. They play the Texans at home, but they are really going to be short players, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And then the Bucs at 2-0. The Bucs win week 1, Washington, sure. Bucs win in Detroit. Lions, and Campbell took the loss, said he made some big mistakes, especially before the half. Lions were 7 times in the red zone and got 1 touchdown. Think about that. That offense with all those weapons, 7 times in the red zone, 1 touchdown. They fall to 1-1, but Bucs 2-0, Vikings 2-0, Saints 2-0, and the Bucs are 2-0. And this week, they get themselves a game that should propel them to 3-0. They get Denver at home. And Denver can't get out of its own way right now offensively. They're 0-2 and they can't score. So the Bucs should go to 3-0. Big start for the Bucs. And that first month can really propel you to big things. So you got some interesting games at 0-2. Jacksonville going to Buffalo. Baltimore going to Dallas. And the Giants at 0-2 go to Cleveland. Now, baseball. Yankees have moved 3 up on the Orioles, and the Orioles have really run out of gas. They have not. Yankees have been sporadic. They've been up, they've been down. Baltimore's just been bad. And Baltimore now has fallen 3 games off the pace. Now, Yankees are on the West Coast this week. They have 3 in Seattle, 3 in Oakland. And the Oakland games are not pushovers, as we know. Baltimore has the Giants and Detroit at home. What do they shave off those 3 games before they meet at Yankee Stadium a week from tomorrow for 3 games? Will those games matter? Will the Yankees take a 3-game lead in? Will they take larger than a 3-game lead in? If they take larger than a 3-game lead in, they can't get caught. If they take a 3-game lead in, all they have to do is win 1 game. They close home against the Pirates. And the Orioles will close. I have to look up where the Orioles are the last 3 games of the season. I don't remember that off the top of my head. I have to look. They are playing. Let me get there. Hold on. The Yankees will close with the Pirates, and the Orioles will close with the at Minnesota. So advantage Yankees. So Orioles have the Giants, Tigers at home, while the Yankees are in Seattle and in Oakland. Then they meet Yankee Stadium next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then the Yanks close with the Pirates, and they close at Minnesota. Now, the Mets are in a flat-footed tie with the Braves. The Mets have the Nationals. Braves have a game left with the Dodgers, who beat them last night with 7 in the 9th. The Mets and Braves are tied for the 3rd spot. Nobody behind them is catching them. They're not catching the teams in front. Arizona's 2 in front. San Diego's 3.5 in front. Arizona and San Diego play each other the last 3 games of the season. Most likely, those 2 are fairly safe. Schedule. Braves have the Dodgers. Then they have at Cincinnati and at Florida this week, while the Mets have Washington and then 4 with Philly. Then they meet in Atlanta. The same 3 nights the Yankees are playing the Orioles. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. How about Thursday night that week? Mets at Atlanta, Yankees, Orioles, Giants, Cowboys on that Thursday night. Is that enough for you? Yankees close at Milwaukee. The Mets close at Milwaukee. And the Braves close home to the Royals. Now, what does that mean? Right now, what does that mean? Kansas City right now is 2.5 games in front as the wild card. 2.5 games in front of Minnesota as the wild card. Minnesota's the 3rd wild card. Kansas City's the 2nd wild card. Right now, Baltimore's the 1st wild card. So Kansas City has a reason to keep playing. They will have made the wild card, but they'd be playing for positioning. Now, Milwaukee is pretty much now locked in. Milwaukee has 86 wins. Philly has 90. Dodgers have 88. Can Milwaukee get to the point where they can get to the top 2 spots? Depends what the Dodgers do. They're not going to catch Philly. Philly's got a 4-game lead on them. If they play 1-2, obviously is a big advantage. They're fighting for that. But the other thing is they also can deal with how they want to manipulate the wild card a little bit if they want to play a certain opponent. Now, teams usually don't get involved in that, but you can't think Milwaukee's going to take those games off. Just like, Kansas City's not going to be taking those games off. So the Mets have Washington, forward Philly, the 3 games in Atlanta, and Milwaukee. The Braves have the Dodgers, at Cincy, at Florida this week, then the 3 games with the Mets, and then home to Kansas City. 81-68. Let's be honest. 9 chances out of 10. That last spot is going to be decided in Atlanta. We know what Atlanta has been for the Mets. If the Mets want to go to the playoffs, that's got to change. I would think, unless something crazy happens this week, they go into that series with one team probably within a game of the other one, where that series will probably divide it. The odds on them, somebody opening up a 2 or 3 game lead, is probably remote. So let's say they pretty much play even, or somebody gets a game up. Those 3 games are going to decide things. Head-to-head, 24, 25, 26. The Yankees now have a 3-game cushion. If they can pick up a 4th game this week, huge advantage. Huge advantage. Now remember, Yankees are also thinking about not being the 3rd division winner. They won't be, because Houston has 81 wins. They have 87. Cleveland has 86, though. So there's no reason. And the Yankees, I don't see them, with the possible exception of maybe the Sunday game, I don't see the Yankees taking their foot off the gas against Pitt unless they really go on a tear here and really open up a big lead. But record's going to be important too. So the bottom line is the Yankees have now gotten themselves a nice little cushion with 12 games to go. They have a 3-game lead in the division. They are now in a great position where it would be extremely upsetting if they lost the division. They have taken command. 3 with 12 to play is a solid lead. That team has to play 4 games better than you. They do have 3 head-to-head, but they have to play 4 games better than you over 12 games. That's not easy to do. The Yankees go 6-6. Do the math. They have to win 10 of their last 12 games. And the head-to-head will have a big part of that, where the Yankees just need 1 win against Baltimore to stem the tide. Baltimore's going to probably come in needing a sweep. Well, the Mets in Atlanta, that series is probably going to be the bigger one, because the Yankees probably will have a cushion unless they have a terrible week in Seattle and Oakland. So the Yanks are in Seattle and Oakland this week. Orioles who have been really, really erratic. Like in the last 10, Yanks are 7-3, and the Orioles are 3-7. The Orioles haven't played well in so long. Orioles will see the Giants and the Tigers. And then they'll meet a week from tomorrow. I've told you about the 24th for a long time. It's a week from tomorrow. And then, obviously, the 2 baseball series that will culminate the regular season. So 12 games left. Great time of year. Nothing's better than October anyway, but great time of year. Lot going on. Busy week. We'll see you later.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Francesa Podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.